With more than 70 million sales between its 8 mainline entries, the Gran Turismo franchise is one of the true juggernauts of gaming. With its meticulous attention to detail and heavy focus on realism, Sony's smash hit series has helped to revolutionize the racing sim genre, and together with Forza, remains atop of the pile even to this day. The best Gran Turismo games really shook up the racing sim genre, while others merely towed the line, so let's rank the Gran Turismo games. Number 9, Gran Turismo Sport. After a 4-year wait, series fans were both eager and excited to get their hands on Sport. Unfortunately, however, much of that excitement quickly evaporated in the weeks following the game's release when it became clear just how ordinary this installment was. To be clear, Gran Turismo Sport is far from a bad game, but it's not exactly revolutionary either. This is also the game that introduced microtransactions to the series, so it loses a few marks for that. Number 8, Gran Turismo 6. Despite offering more cars and tracks than its predecessor, Gran Turismo 6 only sold around half as many units. This is because a lot of prospective buyers felt that it was just a little too similar to the series' 5th installment, with very little innovation to be found, leading many to stick with what they already had. Number 7, Gran Turismo PSP. Despite first being announced at Sony's E3 2004 press conference, it would not be until late 2009 that Gran Turismo was finally released for the PSP. The game ended up selling just shy of 5 million units, making it one of the best-selling PSP games of all time. Sadly, it didn't fare as well with critics as it did with customers, with the game sitting around a 74 on Metacritic. However, it's actually quite impressive for a handheld driving game of its era. Number 6, Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7 is beautiful to look at and provides one of the most realistic driving experiences to date. That said, its single-player campaign can become a little monotonous, and the return of microtransactions somewhat soured the experience. Even so, when all's said and done, those looking for a realistic racing sim will not be disappointed by this entry. Number 5, Gran Turismo 5. Gran Turismo 5 is the second best-selling game in the series' history, and for good reason. The increased power of the PS3 allowed for a huge step in visual fidelity. With over 1,000 cars and 72 tracks, Gran Turismo 5 was the biggest Gran Turismo game at the time of its release, and also the most realistic. The amount of care and attention that went into perfecting the driving physics is plain for all to see, and a big part of what made the game so fun to play. Number 4, Gran Turismo 4. Building on the fantastic work of its predecessor, Gran Turismo 4 was everything series fans could have hoped for and a whole lot more, with nearly 4 times as many cars and twice as many tracks. Granted, the lack of online play was a little disappointing, and the lackluster arcade mode held it back just a little. Even so, the sheer volume of things to see and do ensured that players could sink hundreds of hours into the game. Number 3, Gran Turismo 2. The first sequel to a smash hit video game can be a difficult thing to get right, with many developers having struggled over the years. Polyphony Digital had no such issues with Gran Turismo 2, though. GT2 took the number of cars from 140 to 650 and almost tripled the number of tracks. New game modes and improved mechanics only served to further sweeten the deal and help to cement the series' position at the very top of the racing sim genre. Number 2, Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec is the best-selling Gran Turismo game to date and arguably offers the single greatest game-to-game improvements in the history of Sony's long-running franchise. Though the number of cars did fall to a much more modest 181, GT3 offered more tracks and more game modes than either of its predecessors. Better still, a big step up in both power and disk capacity from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2 allowed the developers to crank the details up to incredibly impressive new levels. Number 1, Gran Turismo. Other than perhaps Virtua Fighter and Resident Evil, there's an argument to be made that no one video game has made a bigger impression on a genre than Gran Turismo did. Its heavy emphasis on realism and unmatched visuals allowed the developers to really capture the fun of driving without ever needing to resort to cheap gimmicks. The amount of content on offer was so much larger than anyone had seen at the time, from tracks to cars. Gran Turismo had it all, and that's why it's the best game in the series. So that was our list ranking the Gran Turismo games, and we hope you enjoyed.